It's time once again to talk about the experiments going on at the Archibald home these days. I asked my kids how their summer went.
This summer I got my first job.
My favorite part about the summer was the trips. That was also my least favorite part. Because when you're gone, you don't get to hang out with friends.
Wake up at 7, code till 10. Then spend time with a friend the whole rest of the day.
Well, what I love about summer is warm temperature, and I love spending time with cousins, aunt and uncles, grandparents, and also there's no school. And going to the pools. I love swimming. I went on the scariest ride. It's called Cannibal. It's like a curve down, and then it's straight down, and then loop-de-loops, twisty, and then a twisty on the other side. And when I got off of that roller coaster, I was like...
This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. Oh, summer, how utterly ambivalent I feel about you. Up until a few months ago, I thought the word ambivalent meant that you didn't care one way or another. You were disinterested, no opinion, kind of apathetic. It's how I've always used the word. But then I listened to an episode of the Hidden Brain podcast called The Benefit of Mixed Emotions that totally changed the way I think about both the word and the concept of ambivalence. It defined ambivalence as feeling several different, often opposing emotions, feelings, and opinions at once. And how that's a good thing. It keeps us from being rigid and fixed, keeps us flexible and open-minded, and it helps us understand other people. It was a great episode that I highly recommend. But doesn't that just describe summer so well? We love it, what with the long, warm days, lounging at the pool, hikes, vacations, thunderstorms, fireflies, whatever summer looks like in your neck of the woods. Plus, all this time with your kids. And also, so much time with your kids. The quarreling, the I'm boards, the relentless meals, and just so much work. It's exhausting and fun, and overstimulating and relaxing, and so much all at once. The very definition of ambivalence. That's also where its beauty lies. And it's why it's also beautiful when summer ends. I'm recording this episode right at the tail end of September, and summer already seems so long ago. As I was thinking about our summer experiments, I decided to ask my kids themselves how they went, since they're the guinea pigs in most of the experiments. We'll start with Jonas, my oldest at 16. Who had the most drastically different summer this year because his biggest experiment was...
This summer I got my first job. It made me have a lot better of a summer. I learned a lot. I had experience. It kept me busy. Earning money is good.
This was our first experience with one of our kids having a real job, and it's been amazing. The job search started early this spring when Jonas applied and got a job at a burger joint. The pay was great, $18 an hour, and he lasted a whole week before he got fired. We were actually proud of him for getting fired, though, because he had told them up front he couldn't work Sundays for religious reasons. Then they scheduled him for training the very first Sunday he started working. They actually asked him, "What's more important, church or your job?" He made his choice, and he got fired. That opened the door for his dream job, working at a local bike shop. This job is also a mother's dream because not only was he busy and productive all summer, he was learning a skill that has been really useful for our bike riding family. We pay him to fix our ridiculous number of bikes, and it's so amazing not to have to take them into a shop. He's passionate about the work he's doing, he likes the people he works with, and he's gaining a lifelong skill. He's also excited to go to work each day. Probably the best thing about his job is that he has a great boss who's also his mountain biking coach. He's a great mentor and motivator. He automatically works around Jonas's sports schedule, and he even supports his music obsession, letting him off early for a couple of concerts over the summer. As my kids have gotten older, I've found that finding dynamic coaches, teachers, or bosses who are good role models is almost more important than the activities themselves. I feel like teenagers especially really benefit from role models outside their family, and it's easy to spot these great mentors by talking to other parents in your school or community. I'm so grateful for these great men and women who've influenced my kids for good. I always thought that I would stick to the rule my parents had about not working during the school year, but I feel like Jonas is better at time management and even homework when he stays busy and has to keep on top of his schedule. So far, he plans to work there as long as he can. One of the biggest experiments that Jonas did this summer was just figuring out his priorities. At the beginning of the summer, he wanted to fit everything in. He wanted to start his day with tennis, go to work, and then go to mountain biking afterwards. But he soon found that experiment did not work. He was exhausted, and he just couldn't do it all. Something had to give. So, as much as he loves tennis, and as much as we've invested in it with both time and money, he decided to stop playing tennis.
I just realized that every time I play tennis, I would rather be mountain biking, so.
Next up is Miles, my 14-year-old. With my limited experience of 2 teenagers thus far, I think 14 and 15 are the hardest ages for summer. Miles agrees.
I think the hard part about being 14 and 15 in summer is you can't really get a good job. And a good job leads to like a schedule that you have to stick to every day. Like you have to show up to work instead of just like slacking off and just like waking up really late and like not really having any schedule at all.
And then there's the fact that your friends are also 14 and 15.
Most of my friends are a little flaky. I think it'll get better in a few years as we get older, and then we can actually make plans and stick to them.
But even with all those challenges, by the last half of the summer, he had a pretty good schedule going. Most days he would ride his bike into town to meet friends or meet up at the pool in the afternoons. Even so, there was a little more Minecrafting than I was comfortable with. So Miles' big experiment this year was learning how to fight boredom while trying to figure out what sports and activities he wants to focus on as he starts high school. Especially watching how much joy Jonas has found in discovering his passions, I really wanted that for Miles this summer. And by the end of the summer, he had decided to try out for the school musical, so he started practicing for that. And he started to really get into rock climbing, training to try out for a local team. This was actually a big experiment for us. It was our first time for any of our kids to actually have to audition for activities they wanted to participate in, other than swim team, for which you just have to be able to make it across the pool any way you can. It was fun to watch him prepare for both auditions and then try out for both within the same week. Really, my favorite kind of activities for kids are things that are scary but safe. Things that push them out of their comfort zone and really develop their resilience. And this was a big challenge for him. He actually really struggled with his audition for the musical. He forgot all the words that he had been practicing for so long and basically fumbled through his whole audition, and he was heartbroken. He did not think he was going to get in the play. But he made it into the ensemble for Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, a great way to get his feet wet in the theater world, which is quite intense, by the way. And he, Abel, and Claire all made it onto the rock climbing team, which has been great so far. My third son is Abel. Last year, Abel's summer revolved around learning how to animate. He was obsessed. This summer, he dove headlong into a variation on that theme, designing, coding, and animating his own video games. He is a passionate kid that goes all in, and he's created some incredible games. I'll share some of them on Instagram and on the How She Moms YouTube channel, and on this episode's page at howshemoms.com. The tricky part about all his coding is that I didn't want him to spend his whole summer at a computer. But he was pretty good about mixing it up and playing with friends or going to the pool. It was so fun to watch him get so excited about his games all summer. Then, when school started, he shared his games and his whole grade started playing them and eagerly awaiting his updates. It was such a great reward for all the hard work he put in. The other thing Abel experimented with this summer is that he took over Lego Camp from Jonas. Jonas and his friends started Lego Camp 6 years ago. But now that Jonas has a real job, he passed the baton to Abel and his friend. The two of them did a great job running the camp this summer. Here's Abel to explain what Lego Camp is.
Me and my friend had this camp, and we invited 20 kids, each $45 each person. And we practically just babysit them 3 hours a day for 3 days. First day we did Will It Survive? That's where you drop Legos off the balcony. Then we did second day we did Lego Zipline. And then third day we each got them $5 Lego sets. and then they had fun building those, and we had a snack each day.
There were a lot of other activities too, and it was a lot of fun. We originally limited it to 15 kids, but siblings kept wanting to join, and we kept letting them until there were ultimately 20 kids. We learned from that experience that 15 would have been a much more manageable number, but Abel and his friend did pretty well controlling the chaos. While they run the camp, I'm in the house, but totally out of their way. They greet the parents and kids at the door, plan all the activities, and manage the kids. They had to figure out a budget for snacks and the small Lego sets that they gave to the kids, and then they had to split up the money they earned. It was really fun to watch them analyze each day and figure out what went well and what they should change. For example, it got a little crazy the first day, so they realized they needed to hire my daughter Claire and her friend to be helpers. They paid them a small pittance, plus the experience of learning how to run Lego camp for when they inherit it. By the third day, they also learned that they needed to split the kids into 3 groups and do different stations so things didn't get so crazy. That did the trick, and it went much better the third day. It was so good for them to work through these problems and experiment with solutions. And as you could probably tell, they were really excited about the money. Claire, my 10-year-old and only girl, literally dove into her passion this summer, swim team.
Swim team was really fun because this year I actually liked it. Well, not at the first part. The first part I really didn't want to go. And then we started doing morning and afternoon. And then that I really liked. And then I also liked doing the swim meet. And I liked going swimming 3 times a day. Going to swim team, then swim team again, then the Grange.
The Grange is our community pool, so she was swimming 3 times a day in preparation for her meet. One day she swam a full mile in total throughout the day. She ended up getting to know the lifeguards, and they'd give her tips, and everybody was cheering her on. Because of vacations and such, we only made it to 1 swim meet, but she practiced so hard for it, and she won her heat, the first time that's happened for anyone in our family. It was so fun to see such hard work pay off, and she was just beaming.
I worked really hard because I got tips from lifeguards, and I also got tips from my teachers, and it was really fun because I like the gliding part because you just put your hands together, put your legs together, and you glide, and then you put your arms out, put your legs out, and make like a half circle.
As you can see, she could talk about swimming for hours. My youngest, Ezra, turned 7 this summer. His experiments mostly involved seeing how much time he could spend outside with the neighborhood kids. Plus, as you heard in the intro, he went on his first roller coaster, and it was a doozy. I couldn't believe he was brave enough to go on it. It was super scary. This was also Ezra's first year of swim team, and tryouts were a nail-biter, let me tell you.
You can't touch the wall when you try out. And I was really nervous, but I actually did it, doing backstroke.
How did you feel when you made it?
I was like, hooray! And now I'm way better than swimming. Now I used to be the best at backstroke. Now the easiest one for me is breaststroke.
He barely made it across the pool in tryouts, but he did it. And after a scary first couple of practices and lots of tears, he stuck with it and ended up loving it. He even swam in that meet that we did. He also ran his first Boulder, an annual 10K race that we always run as a family, but he usually sits out with a babysitter. He ran and walked the whole thing this year without whining, and to our utter delight and amusement, a month later he got a medal in the mail for finishing 5th in his age category. He was so proud, especially for the fact that he was the only one of us that got a medal. It was definitely a summer for pushing himself and being brave, which I think is a perfect goal for summer at any age, not just when you're 7. I feel like one of the biggest experiments each summer is balancing vacations with enjoying the summer at home. This year we had a family reunion with my parents, their siblings, and their families, and we also had Grandpa Camp, which David's parents host every year for grandkids ages 8 and above. We also spent a couple of weekends in the mountains here in Colorado, so that was pretty much all of our vacations. I also got to go to our church girls' camp this year, which was even more fun than I expected. I forgot how much I love camping. It had been a while, and my husband and 2 of my boys also went to a camp. I felt like it was a great mix of being at home and being away. Anytime we started to get a little bored at home, it was time for another trip, and when we got tired of being away, it was time to come home. Jonas had to miss out on the camp out and grandpa camp, which he's really too old for anyway, but otherwise he was able to get off work. Here's Claire to explain what grandpa camp is really quick.
Well, I really like what my grandpa does. He does grandpa camp, and we do a lot of fun stuff. Like this year we went to Lava Hot Springs. We went on this really scary slide in Lava Hot Springs. We went down this waterfall going tubing. We also got to use shovels to fill in this post that got dug into the ground for the zip line he's making.
The family reunion with my family was a blast, and thanks to my creative parents, included quite a few experiments that I thought you'd want to hear about. First of all, it was quite a crowd. We had 14 adults and 26 kids in my parents' house and a house across the street, which they rented for a week. That turned out to be one of the biggest experiments of the week, actually. We got to test drive the house for a week, realized what a great house it was, and then found out they wanted to sell. So my parents bought it, and they're moving in this week and trying to sell their old house across the street. Pretty crazy. My parents always get really creative with the activities that we do at reunions. And in addition to the obligatory talent show and swimming in the pool at what is now their new house, they tried several new really fun activities. The first one was creating this giant timeline. They printed out pictures of all of our ancestors and moments in history, and we all had to help put it on this big timeline so we could see how our family history fits into history as a whole and how we fit into that whole big picture. It was a really special experience for us and the kids. The second fun activity was the big Chuck-a-Duck tournament. My dad helped all the kids build catapults, and then we had all these little miniature ducks, and they had to catapult them into this kiddie pool right in the center. It was so fun, and there was a whole March Madness style bracket, and we had winners, and all the kids were able to participate. It was super fun. The next activity was called Get Lost. So this was my mom's idea. Here's Claire to tell about it.
We got to do this thing where we got lost. Technically, it wasn't really getting lost because we had a map, and our aunts and uncles drove us blindfolded. Well, we were blindfolded, not them. And we were blindfolded, and they drove us somewhere. And then we had to find our way back home, back to my grandparents' house. We had like a team of, I think it was like 6 or 7. We were, I think, the last team to get home. No, the second to last team to get back to their house. But we had my team had the farthest away. So that was fun, going on an adventure with my cousins.
It was hilarious to watch these kids blindfolded in the cars and then kind of try to get their bearings. They all did a great job, and they made it home. They all had teenagers in their groups, so that it was safe and super fun. They thought it was a great adventure. The last activity I wanted to tell you about was a game they called Heads Up, where they attached photos of my siblings and I to popsicle sticks. My mom compiled a whole list of stories from our childhood, and the kids split up into teams, boys against girls. They had to listen to the story, guess who it was, and then hold up the correct head to see if they were right about it. It was really funny, and the kids had a blast. Plus, they got to know us a little bit better. We were also able to make it to Crested Butte, our favorite mountain town, for a long weekend. This is where we held our annual family retreat. Each year, we take a few days up in the mountains towards the end of the summer and plan our year. We pick a theme, talk about family and personal goals, plan our vacations and bucket lists for the year, and choose our family theme. In past years, our themes have been Look Up and All In, but this year we chose the theme First Things First. We started our ongoing conversation on that theme, talking about how we choose to spend our time and what we want to prioritize this coming year. I also finally got around to doing video interviews of all the kids, which I used to do every year until about 5 years ago. Better late than never. Our retreats aren't all business, of course. We also brought our mountain bikes, and this was the first year we could all ride at least the easy trail together. We also went on some gorgeous hikes.
Because we got to go on this really pretty hike, and then it started raining a little bit. And so on the way down, we started running, and it was really fun.
David and I even saw a bear heading quickly for the trail our kids were about to go on. We had to call them quickly and tell them to turn around. I'll post the video on Instagram. It was just such a great trip. The kids were actually nice to each other for most of the trip, and it was wonderful to get away with just our family after all of our extended family trips. Our other mountain weekend brought us a great economic experiment. David and Jonas rode the Copper Triangle, an incredible 80-mile bike ride. The rest of us planned to do activities at the ski resort while we waited for them to finish. I told them that they could each choose one activity to do. They were $35 each, but I thought we'd splurge and it would be fun. But when we walked around from the trampoline bungees to the ninja course to the go-karts, we realized that the turns were really short for the high cost. I told the kids that they could choose to do the activity like I promised, or we could play in the creek and use that money to go to an indoor adventure course that cost $5 more for unlimited activities. They chose wisely, and we got 2 fun days out of it, one playing around the resort for free and one at the activity center the next week. The bike ride went well too, and it was a great weekend. One of the craziest experiments that we did this summer is babysitting my sister's kids while she and her husband went to Hawaii. This was definitely a good crazy, but crazy nonetheless. Having 9 kids in the house is no joke, but we certainly had a good time. We went on hikes, we went rock climbing, we went swimming, but mostly had a lot of free time for the cousins to just play and enjoy each other. The crazy part of it was that it was the first week of school for my older kids and the week before school for my younger kids. So it was kind of a busy time. I would definitely do it again, but probably not that week. But anyway, we made great memories and had a great time. I always give a tech update in these experiment episodes, and this summer's experiment was kind of a tech free-for-all. We had so many little trips breaking up the summer that the kids had a list of things they wanted to do at home. Since they kept themselves pretty busy and active, I kind of gave them free rein to decompress on screens when they wanted to. I did have to crack down every once in a while when it got excessive and add some limits, but they did pretty well overall. One of the biggest things I learned from this experiment is that no matter how much screen time they get, they still feel deprived. When I asked how screen time went this summer, Ezra said,
You didn't really give me as much screen time.
"Oh, you think?
Yeah.
I'll never win this game." As for personal experiments, at the beginning of the summer, I met the goal I made at the beginning of the year, and I climbed a 5'11" at the gym. It felt so good to reach that goal, and it was just in time before I injured myself and had to sit out the rest of the summer. My rotator cuff is healing, though, and I'm almost back in business. In a totally unrelated experiment, David and I finally ended our nightly bedspread tug-of-war and experimented with twin comforters on our king bed. And it might just save our marriage. I'll let you guess which one of us was the covers hog. As for How She Moms, I launched an overly ambitious summer program early in the summer and got 3 weeks in before I realized that not only was it too much for me, but everyone else too, since only one person signed up. Thanks, Val. I realized that it actually needs to be a monthly program, not a weekly one, so I'm trying it out on my own family right now, and it's going to be really fun. We'll focus on one category of how to take care of ourselves each month and learn skills, set goals, and do fun family experiments and activities. I'm planning to launch it in January, and I'm really excited about it. I'll let you know how our trial run goes in my Fall Experiments episode, and I hope to have a preview of the program available for Christmas if you're looking for a gift for yourself or another mom. Until then, best of luck with your own family experiments this fall. Thank you so much for listening to the How She Moms podcast and for being part of this community. There are so many other ways for you to connect and hopefully also contribute. I share tips and ideas regularly on Instagram and Facebook at How She Moms. You can find past episodes and other resources at howshemoms.com. And you can always just email me directly at whitney@howshemoms.com. Special thanks to my own wonderful mom, Susan Zingley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.